Welcome to the Word Weaver podcast, a literary place in cyberspace where I share tangible tips, tricks, and words of wisdom to help you achieve your dream of writing a book. I'm your host, Louise Johnson, a writer and the author of Behind the Red Door. Let's dive into today's chapter. Hello, and welcome back to the Word Weaver podcast. I'm your host, Louise Claire Johnson, and in today's chapter, I want to talk about the concept of getting your pink back. So this is something I hadn't heard of before, and my husband, Jeff, said it to me, and I can't stop thinking about it. And he said, Lou, you're just getting your pink back. It was a particularly tough day. I was crying, full transparency, and the days there's high highs and low lows, and it was just a particularly rough day. It was a long night with a newborn, and I've been very honest and candid about, I haven't been feeling like myself, and I'm trying to figure out my new identity as a mother, as a writer, as a wife, sister, friend, all of that. What is kind of my new life? What is my new routine? Who am I? And how can I find time to maintain all of the things that I love to do and not lose myself completely in this new role of being a new parent? So he said this to me. We were on a walk with our baby, and he said, Lou, you're just getting your pink back. And I said, what does that mean? Where did you hear that? And he explained this concept to me. It's something that he read where flamingo mothers, when they have a baby, they lose their pink color as they're feeding and caring and nurturing their chicks. And then eventually they get their pink back once the baby is more independent and can nourish itself and becomes a little bit more mature. And I thought, wow, what an incredible concept and metaphor for kind of how I'm feeling right now. So if you're watching the video episode of this podcast, you can see I'm wearing a pink shirt. That wasn't necessarily done on purpose. I actually do love to wear pink, and I can only wear button-up shirts or zip-up shirts these days because I'm breastfeeding. So I'm wearing all of my button-up shirts in a rotation. But I'm wearing a pink shirt today, and I've slowly been trying to get my pink back. And I wanted to share that because I'd never heard of it before, and I thought it was a really lovely way to think about reclaiming your identity and reclaiming kind of your autonomy once you go through a major life change. You don't necessarily have had to have a baby to get your pink back, but I just wanted to share also what I'm doing. Maybe it'll inspire some of you, give you a little bit of insight into ways that you can feel like yourself again and kind of get out of a bit of a slump. And I always like to relate everything to writing, of course. This is a bookish podcast, the Word Weaver podcast. So also this idea of getting out of a writing slump, getting your pink back when it comes to your work in progress, your manuscript. And that's something that I'm dealing with as well. I put all of my work projects on hold as soon as I had the baby, and I've been itching to get back into it. I haven't felt fully myself. I also haven't had the brain capacity, to be fully honest, to dive back into it. But when I take extended periods of time away from working on a manuscript or working on a bookish project, starting is always the hardest part for anything. And getting back into it can also seem very daunting because one of the big things for me is when I do get a spare few hours, let's say 2 to 3 hours, my husband Jeff has the baby or my mom is looking after the baby, and I have this block of time to myself. I actually got really overwhelmed and started crying because I didn't know where to start. Should I go take a nap and start to recharge myself because I haven't slept in 6 weeks? Or do I just go take a shower? Do I go read and relax? Do I take a walk? What do I do? Or do I take advantage of these 2 to 3 hours and start working on my manuscript again, pick that back up, or work on Bookshop Bucket List, record a podcast episode? What should I do with this time? And I would go back and forth in my head of what is the priority. And then, especially when it comes to writing and book projects, if I started working on a new manuscript or researching a new book, I would also get very overwhelmed because I would think, okay, I have this 2 hours. I'm not going to finish what I'm starting. There's just not enough time. These writing book projects take extended periods of time. When will I ever get to return to this? It takes a little bit getting back into it. So I just felt this pressure not to waste the time, and then also this overwhelming feeling of when will I ever get to return to this project? Is it futile? Is it pointless to keep working on this when I won't even get to finish it? So in terms of getting my pink back when it comes to my writing career, one of the big things that I did is I sat down and had a conversation with my husband and just said, look, I am feeling really overwhelmed. I'm not feeling like myself. I'm in a place now where I want to start reclaiming a bit of my creative identity, but I'm not feeling like I have the bandwidth to do that right now. How can we carve out that time so I start to feel like myself again? And just as an example, my husband loves golf. That is his way to recharge. That's his form of meditation, his form of therapy. Whether that sounds silly or not, I never judge anybody of how they recharge during the week. And for him, being out on the golf course, being in nature, being with his friends, doing something active is how he gets out of his head and his own stresses. And I really respect that. And I admire that he is vocal about, I need this time. This is how many hours it's going to take every month or every week. How can we make this work? And so for me, my form of golf, I guess you could say, is reading, writing, working on bookish projects, moving the needle towards a goal. And for me, that is writing, publishing books, especially, but also anything else that falls under this author brand or this author umbrella, whether it's this podcast or YouTube or working on Bookshop Bucket List. All of that for me fills my creative well. And I haven't been able to do that for a while. And looking ahead, I couldn't see where I would be able to fit it in. I'm trying to rejig my schedule and figure out how I can still do it all, even though my plate was already overflowing. And then being a new parent, it's like you get a brand new platter, not just a plate. It's a whole new plate that I didn't even have the bandwidth for, but that has taken precedence. So, how can I squeeze in things that I love in these little pockets of time that I'm allotted? So, back to that conversation with my husband, the most important thing was I think I need a little more consistency on a weekly basis. I understand every day is different. It's not realistic right now to have a set time every day, but maybe a set few hours every week. So, for example, every Tuesday, I know I will get 2 to 3 hours to myself in my writing office where I can work on a book related project or a new manuscript. And just knowing that every Tuesday I will be able to return to that project immediately made me feel better in working on it. So, even if it's little increments and I'm inching towards a goal, I know that it won't be months and months until I get to return to that project again. And just figuring out how to do that with breastfeeding. So, even for me, a big thing is also getting out of the house because if I hear the baby crying or I know he's here, I want to go cuddle him and play with him. It's very hard for me to separate the mom hat, I guess, now with the writer hat when I'm home. And also, there's just so many things and distractions at home now. It's so much laundry to do and just tidying the house and taking out the all of the dirty diapers. There's just a million things to do. So it's very easy to get distracted and not prioritize work related things. So getting out of the house has been another way that I'm getting my pink back. A huge thing is changing your environment. So for me, that's going to a library or a coffee shop. And I got to do that earlier this week, and it just completely reset, reinvigorated me. I went to my local library. I biked there, which was amazing. Got outside, got some vitamin D. I brought my breast pump, so I was able to pump as well and keep that for the baby so that I'm able to do both and be out of the house. And just being in the library, there's something about being surrounded by books. That is super inspiring. And I wanted intense focus and quiet. So I really like the library for that. And then I also love the ambient noise and chatter at a coffee shop, just a little bit of a different speed and environment, especially if I'm doing admin or answering emails, I will go to a coffee shop. So that is kind of my biggest tip. Number one is, well, first, speaking with your partner and just reclaiming that time, finding a way to make writing a priority again, creating an action plan, whether it's weekly or daily. I got out my calendar and I scheduled it into my calendar to reclaim that time for me, put it on my wall. I'm a pen and paper gal, so I put it in my agenda, put it on my wall calendar, and just visually seeing this is my writing time again has helped me see, okay, I'm able to balance it. Maybe it's not as much, not nearly as much writing time as I used to have, but it's something. And that's a way to start reclaiming my identity. And also putting in deadlines. So, another big thing when you're trying to get your pink back or getting out of a writing slump is that previously I had all of these deadlines and I've missed those deadlines, whether they're arbitrary or self-imposed deadlines. It can feel very disheartening, feeling like, ugh, I'm already so far behind. How am I going to dig myself out of this hole? Throw that all out of your head and set new deadlines for yourself. For me, that's really important to have a target to work towards and just looking ahead now. Don't look back at the past. We have, what is it? June. It's July now. So by the time you're listening to this, it'll be July, and we have just under half a year left in 2024. What can you reasonably accomplish in that time frame? What can you accomplish in the next month? And then what can you accomplish in the next week? And put in those deadlines. Try to be realistic with yourself. I mean, this is advice for me too. I seem to overestimate how much I can accomplish in a day or in a few hour time span. And so I'm really narrowing my focus and being gentle with myself of how much I can feasibly get done. That has been huge. Just making writing priority again, putting it in the calendar, creating an action plan, stating my needs, which is hard for me as a people pleaser and someone who likes to or naturally just kind of puts other people first, especially as a mom, putting the new baby first is just comes naturally. And trying to put myself first can often feel selfish, but I'm trying to also not think like that and just say it's like the in an airplane, the oxygen mask theory of I need to put my oxygen mask on first so that I can help other people around me and also be the best mother, wife, sister, friend, daughter that I can be. So that's first. Then the next thing is changing my environment. I already mentioned I love libraries and coffee shops, and that was huge for me. I was able to go work at a library earlier this week, completely refocused me, got me back passionate about my writing projects and just shaking things up. Also, so you're not distracted at home. But then also, now that I've kind of started working on projects again, being back in my office doesn't feel as daunting or overwhelming. And then just a side note, I also, if you are working at a home office or in a little corner, a desk somewhere in your house, I have to have it completely decluttered and clear. It's just when you have a clear space, you have a clear mind. So that's also important when it comes to changing your environment or having a clear headspace to get work done. And then the next thing I do to get my pink back or get out of a writing slump is a little bit more of a technical, practical tip. And this is sitting down and reviewing all of my notes. Get out your binders. I use Scrivener for my writing projects. So I will go open my Scrivener, even just opening that icon, or if you work in Google Docs, opening that document or a Word document, that in itself is a win. Just double clicking and seeing it open is huge because it's so easy not to open it when there's a million other things pulling at your attention. So opening the document, reviewing my notes, they're all in Scrivener, reviewing any past chapters, work in progress that you have. I reread my outline and synopsis. I am a plotter. I like to know where I'm going and just getting that big picture view of my manuscript again is very helpful. And then also, if it is a new writing project or new manuscript, I will gather, I'm always writing notes different places when inspiration strikes. So if I have notes in my iPhone, I will take all of those, put them into Scrivener. And then also, all of my notebooks, I will take all of my notes, put them into one place so that my brain isn't trying to calibrate, okay, where was that sentence or that character description that I wanted, or that setting or that scene that I scribbled on a little cue card. I put it all in one spot, and then I feel like I'm starting to get into the mindset again of the novel. That's kind of just the other practical tip. Just get everything into one place so that when you do revisit your writing project the next time, everything is there for you. You're not scrambling, running around, trying to find everything that you need. Just have it visually in front of you. I will also gather all of my research books, put them on my desk, just so I can have them as an easy reference and it jogs my mind. Another thing that I do to kind of get myself back into the mindset is to read. And often I will reread my old favorites, authors that I return to again and again, just to get back into the rhythm and flow of sentences of really beautiful prose, so that it reminds me, okay, I can do this. I have done this before. This is why I'm doing it. This is what drives me, is creating beautiful sentences, beautiful paragraphs, putting together a chapter. I love the whole architecture of putting together a book as well. And when I reread books that I really love, it just reminds me, okay, this is why you're doing it. This is why you fell in love with writing in the first place. I am a reader first and a writer second, and I just love creating these word worlds. So rejig your inspiration and imagination by returning to people who have done it before and who do it really well and that you admire. So I would reread classics. And also, in that vein, when you're reading, maybe also just pick up books in the genre that you're writing. So again, you can look at what is the tense, what is the point of view? Is it first person, past tense? Kind of getting into that flow of how does the author set up the scene? What is the dialogue like in that tense, in that point of view, in that genre that you're writing? Because it'll just, again, kind of get you into the flow, into that rhythm for when you sit down and start writing your own book. It won't feel as daunting. It'll feel a little bit more natural and familiar because it's playing on a loop in your head. And then also something that's really important for me as I try to get my pink back is giving myself a mental pep talk. It is very easy for me to be very critical and hard on myself. I very easily fall into kind of this self-doubt spiral of what am I doing? What is the point of all of this? Will anyone even read my next book? Am I wasting my time and energy? Should I be placing it elsewhere? And has this been done before? All of those kind of self-doubt, really negative thoughts, it's very easy to succumb to, especially when you haven't written for a while. So I will go for a walk. I don't usually kind of sit with myself, but I will go for a walk outside, take a deep breath, and just give myself this internal mental pep talk, no negative self-talk allowed, and just remind myself that I have done this before. I can do it again. And even if this is your first book, you've never done it before, you have definitely overcome challenges in your life at a certain point. Even if you're in high school and there was a particularly daunting essay that you had to write, you overcame it, you did it. Or even applying for university, that can be overwhelming, but you overcame that challenge. Or maybe you were training for a half marathon and you ended up doing it. There are so many examples in your life that you can look back on where you were faced with something overwhelming, something new you hadn't done before, and you overcame it. And writing a book is no different. You can absolutely write a book. It's just you can't get too far ahead of yourself and overwhelm yourself with the mountain ahead of you. One of the big things that I actually have on a sticky note beside my desk here is little by little is how big things are accomplished. I remind myself of this every time. Just one little baby step. Don't get too far ahead of myself. Little by little is how big things are accomplished. And then the next thing, I also have it on a sticky note here in front of me, is that everything seems impossible until it is done. Writing a book can seem so insurmountable, it seems impossible until you look back at the printed computer pages in front of you of your first draft. And you will be so proud of yourself when you get there. But just focus on the next sentence you have to write, the next chapter you have to get to. And I promise you, you can accomplish hard things. You can accomplish this goal. So, those are things that I remind myself even every time I start a new writing project. And then the last thing that I kind of do to get my pink back, this is more of a vanity metric, a little bit more of on the self-care vein, I guess you could say, because when you look good, you feel good. I do believe there's something to that. And when I don't feel my best, I still don't feel my best mentally or physically going through pregnancy and delivering a baby and what I'm going through right now in the fourth trimester, I guess you could say. I physically don't feel my best and mentally I don't feel my best. So for me, just doing little things to kind of feel better, taking the time to have a hot shower, do a face mask, put on eye patches, sit outside in the backyard with some vitamin D, have 30 minutes to read my book makes me feel so much better. And then also, Jeff treated me to a mani-pedi recently. I cannot tell you the last time I had gel manicure or a gel, or I guess it's called shellac pedicure. I'm not very good at sitting there for a very long time, but he said, no, go take this time. I'm treating you to a manicure and a pedicure. And I got to sit in this really relaxing massage chair. I got pink nails on my fingers and my toes. I had a Starbucks chai tea latte while this was all happening. And even just that, taking the time to pamper myself felt a little bit better than me being in my pajamas with spit up all over me and hadn't showered in days. And I just felt, okay, I'm slowly starting to take care of myself on the exterior. And it does, it feels like a little bit of a jolt on the inside. I also got to get my hair highlighted for the first time in months and months and months. And that felt really rejuvenating just to kind of get some fresh blonde highlights for the summer. I started to feel like myself again, and I brought my breast pump while I did it so that I could pump on the go. Jeff had the baby, so I could be able to do this. And yeah, I'm slowly just starting to hopefully reclaim a bit of who I used to be, but also becoming a new, better version of myself in the long run. So I hope this episode was interesting, inspiring. I'm curious if you had heard of this concept with flamingos of getting your pink back before. It's something that really inspired me and I liked a lot. So I created a whole episode about it. Anyway, wherever you are in the world, I hope you are having a great day, great evening, and I will see you, or you will hear from me if you're listening to this in the next episode. All right, until next time, bye.